Get on YouTube. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for West Valley Hot Topics. This is a series that we launched this year specifically to address the growth that's going on in the West Valley. And it's no secret that the West Valley is pretty much on fire with growth over the last several decades. But more recently, we've seen a kind of a shift in the concentration of what's happening today. So this series is brought to you by our partners at SRP. And they are our title sponsor for this series. So we'll just hear a brief message from SRP. As we're queuing that up, here we go.
SRP is excited to partner with Westmark for Hot Topics, a very timely and informative series designed to support strong and sustainable economic growth across the West Valley and the entire greater Phoenix area. Arizona's communities faced unprecedented challenges in 2020, and together we supported and helped each other navigate through all of it. Like many of you, I am really optimistic about the new year ahead, and SRP is looking forward to working with Westmark to recapture the strong economic momentum we had before the pandemic. Maricopa County is the fourth largest county in the nation. Economic forecasts and growth projections suggest that much of the state's future economic opportunity will be in western Maricopa County, with estimates that nearly half of all of the new growth will take place in the West Valley. That is so exciting. SRP's economic development team works closely with local governments and key community organizations like Westmark to recruit and retain businesses and to support the creation of good-paying jobs for Arizonans. Reliable, affordable, and sustainable water and power are key factors for businesses considering expanding or relocating. We've been delivering those critical resources to our customers and the communities we serve for more than 100 years. Site Selection magazine recently named SRP a 2020 top utility in economic development. We're really proud to be recognized for our commitment to help the communities we serve grow and prosper. More than anything, a sustainable and resilient water supply is critical for continued growth and economic vitality, especially in the desert. According to a recent report from the Bureau of Reclamation, SRP's reservoirs and water systems are resilient and well-positioned to ensure a reliable supply of water well into the future. We understand when West Valley businesses and organizations succeed, the entire metro area thrives as well. Please remember that SRP is always here to help. Thank you for participating today and for all that you do for the community and for Arizona.
Awesome. Again, thank you to SRP for sponsoring this series for us. This is such a timely topic. There's so much going on in the West Valley. There's so much going on in the state and the nation in terms of growth. But we're excited today to have this panel who's very experienced in residential and retail growth that's been going on. So with us today is Liz Recchia, Government Affairs Director for WeSERV, Chuck Wells, Senior Vice President for Restaurant Real Estate with Kidder Mathews, and Scott Phillips, Vice President with Carefree Partners. So thank you all for being here. Appreciate your knowledge that you're going to share. We're excited to hear what you have going on. So Liz, why don't we start with the rooftops, because that's how communities develop, right? So what's happening? I know that you work statewide with WeSERV, but what's going on specifically in our backyard?
Well, we have seen a increase in the housing, which people are now seeing that rooftop come on that we talked about 3 years ago. Those rooftops are coming. We are experiencing some shortages of inventory, and there's a lot of different reasons for that, but the market will take care of that, and it already is in a lot of ways. So we have a lot of different housing, and one of the things I thought would be great is to show you the variety of housing we have in the West Valley, because it is far more extensive than people realize. So if we can just roll that video.
I'm Liz Recchia, Government Affairs Director for the WeSERV Association of Realtors. Welcome to Arizona and the West Valley. Our desert communities have housing choices to fit your lifestyle. We're committed to ensuring you can access information easily so you can find the wide variety of housing options available. WeSERV members are committed to the education of homeowners, future homeowners, property owners, and tenants on the many types of housing available and soon to be available in the West Valley. We know it's important to you to access reliable information on housing for rent and for purchase. Our Realtor members work with new home builders, multifamily communities, and resale property owners. Our affiliate members provide many of the services you'll need as you make the West Valley your home. From moving and storage to financial services to smart home technologies, these and more valuable tenant and homeowner services can be found in our Moving to the West Valley directory. The West Valley is a fast-growing area. What was a farm in January is now a subdivision of homes in August. Our cities are working hard with developers to provide housing of all types. We have a variety of rental options, from single-family detached homes with backyards and rental-only subdivisions, to apartment homes, to condos, to single-family homes in traditional neighborhoods. For purchase, we have a wide array of homes at various price points. Want to live a more rural life? We have that. How about a tree-lined street reminiscent of neighborhoods from decades ago? We have contemporary housing and housing next to major entertainment and sports venues. Welcome home to the West Valley.
So that gives you a flavor of all the different housing options we have here, whether you're renting or purchasing. And it's important for people to understand that West Valley has so much to offer, and will continue to offer that. So when people see the headlines about shortage of inventory and prices going up, that's all true. But as in any other marketplace, those things will be taken care of through the market conditions, and they are. So yes, expenses to build the houses are going up, and that's helping inflate the housing prices as well. But that comes down as we are able to get the supplies, whether it's lumber or concrete or the wallboard, whatever it is. Right now, those are some short-term supply problems, and that will resolve, and it's being worked on at the federal, state, and local, as well as in business, because business wants to do business. So that is all starting to resolve. What's important for a buyer or seller is know what you need and want in a property, whether it is for lease or for purchase. Know your budget, know what your wants are versus your needs. So concentrate on your needs and watch your housing market in your budget, and then purchase or lease when it's appropriate for you.
So we're hearing a lot though about the supply shortage. Talk a little bit more about that. I'm doing a backyard project and it's been taking me months.
Yes.
So help me out.
So pavers, wood, rebar, I mean, pretty much anything you're going to want is in short supply, which means that your project takes longer. Well, the same thing happens for building a house, only on a greater scale. And yes, we have seen some builders who have sent letters to their current customers in escrow and said, you know what, we can't guarantee you we're going to be able to deliver that house on the date we said, or even have a good date for you. So if you would like to get your earnest money back, we will give that back to you, and we will cancel the contract. No harm, no foul. It's great. Some of our builders putting escalation clauses in. That too, as a buyer, you have to know what you can withstand financially and make the best purchase you can. We will probably see some changes in what the new builds look like at different price points, from entry level up up, primarily in the entry level, and then that new move up, that next level up of move up, in terms of what you're going to get inclusive into that. We've seen that in other markets. We saw that 5 years ago. We saw that 12 years ago when supplies of different types of building materials started becoming short and then went into expensive. Then all of a sudden, what you thought would be a granite countertop as a standard became more like you have a choice of all these different types of Formica, which, by the way, Formica is gorgeous now. And you end up with a house that you really, really enjoy, like, and can afford. And on the seller side of the fence, make sure you know where you're going, right? So you see the numbers and they're wonderful, but like any other time in your life, make sure that whatever you're doing now, it means you can go to the next place you want to go to and afford it well. So it's all about paying attention to yourself and what your wants and needs are.
So I've heard of folks, delaying projects, delaying local projects, backyard projects, bigger projects, just amongst my friends. So how does that trickle into the larger housing supply? And, what are some of those decisions? Are people choosing to hold on to land? What's happening there?
So depending on who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, you will delay. And for people who think that the backyard updating shortage of materials is new, no, it took me over 1.5 years to do my backyard, and I started 3 years ago. So it's just that you're getting the message, there's no pavers right now, right? So you have to wait till we get pavers. Those type of things, obviously on a larger scale in a housing complex, are going to lengthen the amount of time. But as we're watching, and I like to watch things like the entitlement of land that's for housing or other projects, and I like to look at the futures market for our commodities. So if you look at the futures market for lumber right now, it is on a downward curve. It's lost already 20% in the last 3 weeks, right? So that's telling you that commodity, people who are in the industry, the growers, the people who harvest it, the people who manufacture it, the people who get it on a truck, the people who get it here, the people who get it either to Home Depot or to wherever, to the lumber yard that your builder uses. They're seeing that supply is starting to come in. Now, do we have some problems with things? And I'll use lumber because that's in the news right now. Yes, and I know that there was a letter that the National Association of Realtors and the home builders and a lot of other stakeholders in the lumber industry had asked federal legislators to sign that said, hey, can we please get the United States and Canada negotiation on that, what used to be a lumber agreement, that just, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. That negotiation contract didn't get renewed. So we're not getting the Canadian lumber that we used to, and that puts a price pressure on. Then we have the tariff issue, and tariffs have gone up. They're looking at the tariffs under current legislation potentially going up more than 2.5 times on products. And it's not just lumber, it's everything else that we bring in, steel, things like that, right? So as those type of things happen, it's going to impact the cost. But will it impact the cost to the point where we have seen in some of our builders, they're talking about their lumber went up 300% in a year, right? It's not going up 300%, even when you add on the increase of diesel and the increase of gasoline, the increase of power to manufacture, and the increase of shipping and the tariffs. It's not 300% for commodity. That's short term. Will the pricing remain higher than it was a year ago? And when you look at year over year, watch out, because April, May of 2020, what was going on? Nobody was doing anything or going anywhere. So be very careful about that. Back up your numbers and start looking into 2019. It's a much better way to look at what's actually happening and get a handle on it. But when you start looking at those type of things, manufacturing capacity is coming back online. Part of what has limited it is the COVID restrictions that you can't have more than a certain number of people there. So all that's starting to be diminished. As that gets diminished, capacity is going up, and capacity for manufacturing has gone up dramatically in the last 4 weeks or so, as more and more states open up. And we get spoiled here in Arizona because we didn't have as long or as many of the restrictions that other states have had. But our stuff comes from other countries and other states that we're using within this industry. So just everyone take a deep breath. It'll be okay.
So my yard's going to get done.
It's going to get done.
The year.
Yeah.
Okay. So city plans. So tell us how the city planning and general plans, things like that, how are they affected? And maybe more timely is what needs to be done right now based on the shift that we've been seeing.
So in your city plan, if you go to your city, you look at the city plan, it's going to tell you where your manufacturing areas for that city is, where your housing areas are. And a lot of the cities who just improved or just updated their LDOs, their land use development ordinances last year, based on their city plans. So we are seeing the cities come out and say, we think these are different kinds of housing variety that we in the city see that we want to do. And there's a huge expansion now. So you will see cities that before mostly had rural or larger homes or larger lots say, hey, there's a population group that we're not serving in our city. They might need smaller lots or narrow lots, or even in some cases, we're seeing cities revisit the idea of an alley type of construction. Trying to broaden the variety of housing options that a builder developer has, depending upon the marketplace that they are looking at and the lifestyle of those people. One of the things that we have done at WeSERV is we have advocated for a broader look at even HOAs. So we think that there's a place in the marketplace for no HOA communities. There's a market there. We know that because our members help people buy and sell property. We get buyers in all the time and have for several years. I don't want an HOA. So there's a marketplace there. Let that be an option that's open. For those who want an HOA, one of the restricting factors was you could only have, in some cities they would say, we want a pool always. Well, that's extremely expensive and difficult to maintain. So one of the things we advocated was what other things could be an amenity? And depending on lifestyle, it could be a connection to the county trail system. It could be an equestrian pathway. There's a lot of different things that are amenities. And so allowing the builders and developers to design those communities for the lifestyle of the people who are the most likely to lease or own in that subdivision, depending on what you're doing, is a great option, and broadening the viewpoint. So we are very much in favor of a lot of choices for a lot of different price points for a lot of different people, particularly if you have a city who wants to take people from cradle all the way to the time where they need assisted living. There's a lot of different housing choices in there.
So I just saw a very timely question pop up in the chat box. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and pop them in the chat box and we'll get to them during this discussion. Are you experiencing any clients asking for larger lots? Obviously now, we had a whole shift of people working from home, and, I was going to a smaller place, and now all of a sudden I need an office for myself, my husband, and, all of this room. So what are you seeing in terms of what people are looking for? And is that long-term?
So we have one good thing about the West Valley is we have such a vibrant marketplace because we have such a variety. So we see people asking for larger lots, right? They want to have pets and they want to have kids, or they have 2 or 3 generations sharing a home. We have some builders who build the home within a home. We also have people who buy bigger homes so that grandma and grandpa can come live with them. So those folks are looking for that larger home on a larger lot. Sometimes what a larger lot looks like, and this is back to your LDO, your land use development ordinance, where do you place that house on the property so you maximize what that land is when you have a very large side yard and then a larger backyard or a smaller backyard and side yard. Those are all questions that the developer is going to be asking and working with the city on. Do we see a rise in single story? We've seen a rise in the request for single story homes for a few years now. And that's coming out of a couple of different places. First of all, you have the two ends of your marketplace, your younger end of the marketplace and your older end of the marketplace. Okay, they both want a simple, it's amazing how many things they have in common. The older people and the younger people want simple, I don't want to have to do much yard work, I don't have to do much maintenance, and I want something that's easy to take care of, and if I want to go on vacation, I don't have to worry about a lot of things. So the single story works really well for both of those groups. Olders because they don't want to climb the stairs anymore, and the youngers because they just want something they can breeze through and do real quick. And when you start seeing the larger homes, the 2 stories, that's your larger families. And we do have a significant number of families who are looking for those larger homes. They have 4, 5, 6 children, and then if grandparents come to visit, they need a larger home. So we are seeing in some of our markets, some of our cities, they don't have enough of the larger homes. So one of the things we like to do for the cities is give them an update on what we see going on in their marketplace. So they're aware. So when they talk to builders and developers, they're aware of the product that their city is lacking, so that they can sort of look at that and say, yes, we do need those larger lots. We do need the larger homes, or we need the smaller homes, the 1-story homes, because we don't have enough of those. And that's what our people and our association can bring them, that actual knowledge of what's going on.
One question you're kind of heading this way. One last question before I transition. How can your average resident get involved in knowing what's going on in their city and their city plans? I can't tell you how many times people complain about freeways or Luke Air Force Base, and they bought next to a freeway, or, the base was kind of here for quite a while.
Long
now.
time.
So how do they get involved and get a little bit more educated other than just the obvious things around them?
So if you are looking at a particular community, a particular city or town, I strongly suggest that one of the first calls you make is to the Economic Development Department. That department will be able to lead you within the city to the resources you need. So if you're building, they'll tell you where you need to go to get the building information. If you're purchasing, they'll be able to tell you what's coming. That is the department that knows who the builders are that already have entitled land. So they already know they're coming, they already know where they're going to build, and they pretty much have a good idea of what they're going to build. You just don't see it yet because they have to put infrastructure in, and the city's helping them place that infrastructure as part of the planning. If you go to your city's website, there will be a place for the city general plan, and that's what you're looking for, the city general plan. And on there will be a map that is colored, and it tells you this is going to be for industrial over here, this is going to be for residential over here, all color coded, so you know within residential what type of residential. Will it be multifamily rentals? Will it be single family detached subdivisions? Will it be some mobile homes? What will that be? So that's part of what you find in the city plan. So go to your city website, look at the map of the city plan and see what's planned already, and then give a call to your Economic Development Department, and they will lead you to the other sources you need to find out exactly what you need for that city.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lori. Appreciate your time. So we're going to transition now to Chuck Wells, because we have 1.7 million hungry residents in the West Valley. And Chuck, when we initially talked about this discussion, you kind of gave the evolution of how communities develop in terms of restaurants. So I want to go through that, walk through that a little bit, because I'm done with the chains. I don't eat fast food, so help me out. I need some good quality food. How do I get there?
There's really a market that has to be proven, by the people who are willing to take the risk. That's going to be your chains. They have the money, they have the capital. So when I've noticed this in every community when they start growing rapidly, is that who's the first one to show up? It's the guys with the drive-through windows. They're successful. Oh, now the chains start paying attention. They're successful. And then finally the locals start paying attention because they're finding out that the average unit volumes, the AUVs of Cheddar's is $2 million higher than it is out throughout the country in Goodyear here. I think one of the first ones to take a chance out here was probably Oregano's when they came out here to both Surprise and to Goodyear. They designed their Goodyear store with a huge patio, knowing that, well, if we do okay, we'll expand on that patio. They did that year one.
No.
They expanded their seating. It's still too busy.
Yeah.
So it's really an evolution. You can't leapfrog over anything else. It has to kind of go through that evolution to where operators can hear the story and watch the rooftops down. And what's different on the west side now when I first started working this market 30 years ago, it's a whole different west side. I mean,
The West Valley now.
the West Valley, correct. Yes. But I mean, local operators back when I first got started, the West Valley was Metro Center, and it was 75th and McDowell. And then the freeway came in, and man, it started, I don't want to use bad term, it started cleaning up. And the volumes became higher, and transportation became easier to get around. Rooftop took off, and
Household income.
retail doesn't just follow rooftop; it follows income. So it's a different population out here now than it was 25 years ago, 20 years ago, even 15 years ago. So I mean, I've been telling my associates, I go, I'm gonna spend a lot of time on the west side of town over the rest of my career. There's just a lot to do out here, and the term we use is, is there either too many butts and not enough seats, or vice versa. And out here, it seems like the volumes out here for a lot of my clients are higher than they are in the East Valley. They're more successful here because of demand and the growth and everything's happening out here. So.
And we don't want to drive. So we don't want to drive to the other side of the town. So I know you have a few slides that kind of walks through this. Do you want to?
Yeah, really. So real quick, I'm with Kidder Mathews. We're the largest independent firm west of the real estate firm west on the West Coast. Offices stretching from Seattle down to San Diego, Nevada, and Arizona. We're about 5 years old on the market here. Myself, I got licensed a long time ago. My first full year in the business was 1987. Got pushed into the restaurant side of things because that was an opportunity back then. We're not many other people doing it. And I actually worked for a finance company for about a year and kind of learned the backside of the restaurant. So we could have a good conversation with the operator. So if you go to the next slide, please. There's some of my tenants I've represented over the years, and there's several of that. So When we talk about the west side of town, go next slide, please. There's certain trade areas, certain intersections that are focal points. The Four Corners area in Peoria, I mean, there's just a lot of retail gravity up there, and it's front of mind location. Bell and Litchfield is one of the first successes out here on the west side of town. Everything happened there when more vehicles than those. You know, you got a Walmart, a Home Depot, a Target, a Lowe's, and everything in between. Arrowhead Mall, when you remember when it was built, it owned the west side. It was the only mall out here besides Metro Center. And the sales at Arrowhead have always been amazing. They've always been the number 1 or 2 mall in sales per square foot in the city here. But it's full of, you know, chain restaurants. And when Bell Road pretty much was all occupied, it started coming down 83rd Avenue. So the new exciting one out here now is really 303 in Waddell. It's Costco open out there, and Josh Simon's building his product out there. It's a focal point now where everybody's running towards. Of course, Westgate, 99th McDowell, and the new Civic Center being built in Goodyear, and they success out there in Estrella and McDowell. So if you go to the next slide here, we'll kind of show you some graphics with areas of why these centers draw attention. And, you know, I put some verbiage here on the side there as far as the traffic generators, the incomes in the area. Like I said, we just don't follow rooftop, we follow income. Mm-hmm. And that helps you dictate to what type of concept's going to fit there. You know, are you going in a neighborhood that can't afford you, or one where it's underserved and they want the next step up from the chains and the product that's going to get them excited to go out? So the Four Corners, like I said, it's always been a strong intersection with everything's happening up in the rooftop coming up around there with Estancia. We continue to gravitate towards that. The new product there on the northwest corner, you have an In-N-Out coming. So that's going to be kind of fun up here. You have on to the north side of there is the retail shops. There's some local operators out here looking to do some cool products there too. So the new Aldi Center down at the bottom there's some black coffees coming in. So it's a mix up, you know, because when these developers develop, they go after the chains because they're financeable. So that's why they show up first too. They get the best deals offered to them. Yep. If you go to the next slide, I believe we talk about.
Before you go to the next slide, I want to just point out something that's on this slide, that in this area of the Four Corners, because I was thinking this and then I read it, the average household income is approximately $125,000. That's something that people don't really think about when they think about the West Valley.
Agree 100%. And that's our job to educate them.
Yes.
So guys, your thinking needs to change about the West Valley.
Yeah. And we market the West Valley, of course, as a region. So our average household income is over $75,000. But when we look at pockets like this, we see that there are upwards of $100,000. So these are, I think, key things to point out to
there's definite demand out here. I know developers talk to guys like the great Cristinos, Greg Marco, Sam Fox. They want them out here, and they will get here. They will get here eventually. It's just they're going to help develop the project go to fit around who they are and really understand those demographics. And the more they learn about this, the more excited they are to come out here. So Bell and Litchfield, I mean, she's got, how long has it been around? Couple of years, yes. And the flyover bridge helped a lot with traffic out here. The product that you extended to the west of Litchfield there along Bell Road has been exciting. Again, it's, you know, mostly chains, but they all do well. Their numbers are strong. We see very low vacancy up here. And when something does come available, there's people running towards it. The Price City Hall, the new product you plan there along Civic Center and Bell, and all the residential you're going to talk about later coming up here, it's going to get you that local cool concept that everybody will enjoy having here. Next slide, please. Arrowhead. It's just been a game winner from day one, it seems like. It's just, like I said, it owned the West Valley for a lot of years out here. It still does. Regional mall location. The product there along 83rd Avenue, you know, when something falls out, something falls right back in. The P83 project here is going to bring what's really needed out here, because what I think that struggles out here is the lack of employment. A lot of elevator shafts grading people out in the streets every day for lunch. So everybody's fighting for lunch crowds, which I have the banner for the $6.99 lunch we can see out here all the time, right? There's not enough lunch crowd out here. It's all retail employees and people shopping retail. Once they get some products out here for office and there's employees out on a day-to-day basis, it's really going to help make it even stronger and probably get some more different concepts out of it. More excited in the retail chain, but nobody. The Cheddar's just signed a deal out here. They just announced it this morning, taking over the Pacific Sea out here. So they have another chain, but it adds to the mix out here.
You know, I think the lunch crowd is something that we've heard and we've talked about for a while. Is how do we build that lunch crowd? And what I've learned through different conversations is the lunch crowd is also not necessarily your traditional professional lunch crowd, but it's your moms that are at home
Yes.
with their kids and with their friends. And so we do have a lunch crowd. It's just not necessarily the lunch crowd that traditionally we think about. But I think that's going to also start changing too, with a lot of folks, you know, taking that work from home option and, you know, staying home. So we definitely saw with the cities this last year, an increase in 2020 of their sales tax revenue, as opposed to what we all thought was going to be, you know, the end of the world. It actually was quite the opposite. We saw their sales tax revenue increase because you had so much of the client staying local and spending.
Agreed. We've seen that in many cities around the state here where their sales tax revenues went up because of the work and so on and so forth. This product out here on 83rd, you have a concept called the social. And Joey owns that. He's a great operator, just a great person, but he wants to expand that because of the success out here. So he's thinking about rolling out some other locations also for that. And it's kind of a Costinos type concept.
Yeah.
Just, you know, wine and craft beer, small plates, and just a fun place to hang out.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it?
Next slide. All right, this is one's really grabbing a lot of attention. You know, you remember back in the day, this was Prasada. It's going to be the regional mall location, Power Center, Target. The Auto Mall came out here early. The Walmart came in. I remember being out there with Chipotle looking for sites years ago, and that Walmart, or excuse me, the Burger King had a car stacked in the drive-thru 2 in the afternoon, which told me there was demand out here. And we had the slowdown with the housing crisis had the last year, and Josh Simon put this under contract right at the beginning of the COVID lockdown. And he told me earlier this week, he goes, I've got more demand out here for junior anchor spots than I do. The Fat Cats, they're out of Utah. They're kind of a Dave and Buster's for families, young kids. They're putting the concept out here with a theater and an indoor arcade and stuff like that. The cotton and Waddell side has been very active too with other product. People running towards that. Ad prices are high. There's demand. But this is going to be a game changer out here as far as giving those people on the 303 corridor a place to go besides going around the corner all the way to Litchfield or dropping down to McDowell and Pebble Creek. So it's pretty exciting what he's doing out here. And the excitement he has about it. The interior, you see the Village of Prasada there. It's kind of an interior restaurant courtyard area, so to speak. Mario Queen is committed out here. There'll be some other locals that want to come out here like Mario Queen. And I think they're going to have tremendous success out here. So we congratulate Simon together. Next. Westgate. Took a while, but man, is it on fire now. New ownership really have energized the project. I did the Buffalo Wild Wings deal out here, and we got that done. We sold the volumes Yard House. Their Yard House blows away the other two stores on the market at Desert Ridge and Scottsdale Fashion Square. It sells volumes out here. Even as a chain, it was their best store in their corporately owned store. It sells per square foot. And they wanted to expand also one time, just couldn't figure out how to get the extra 1,500 square feet. Had buildings, they took the project on long. The boulevard there have been very well. Folks coming in and telling them really back concept just to the west of Dave and Buster's there. Actually, I have demand out here, and we don't have room out here. I have clients that want to be here and out of space. So, and the outlet center there really changed the attitude also. I remember when I was doing the Buffalo Wild Wings deal, we stalled on for years. They said, we just can't be busy on event nights. We need to take a check to the bank 7 nights a week. So when the outlet center came in, that changed it. The demand was here before then. They just weren't ready to accept it then. And then when that came in, some other tenants came in, some other restaurants, and they just found the Westgate is a focal point out here with a place to hang out. You can park your car and stay here for a long time and always have something else to do. So it's been a great project. We're not building too many NFL stadiums or hockey arenas around the country right now. So with Super Bowl coming up in 23, that board beers will get these back up. It's been a fun projects to work clients through because they just see the energy. They see the sales numbers out here. So Yam's done a great job of promoting that and activating it. So,
And also the arena and the stadium, they draw some huge concerts.
yes.
Some really big names. And a few years ago, it was compared to, or I said, there is no comparison between Westgate and LA Live in terms of shows and amenities around that. So while LA Live gets the shows that we get, they don't have near the amenities. I had not been to LA Live, but then I just happened upon it about 2 years ago prior to the pandemic. I didn't even realize I was walking through it because it was not a whole lot. And then realized later on that's LA Live. So wait a minute, I told you to check this out because I missed it. So there is no comparison between Westgate and LA Live in terms of, again, bringing those national draws to this area and having that. So it is a community that's well beyond just the game nights or the event nights, because there's a lot to do within this area for families and more to come. I don't know if you're going to hit on Coastal Lagoon, but there's definitely a lot more coming in the future.
There is a lot more coming. And then what the clients are surprised to hear out here is that volumes out here surpass the communities they think should be stronger. Tempe marketplace, the book out here does better than that.
Right.
And when they start hearing that, like, are you sure? I'm going, yeah, here's the numbers. They're going like, we did not know that. So, and what I tell them is that there's so much competition on that side of town because so many projects out here, again, we're underserved. So you open up here, your success chances that are much greater because there's pent up demand and it keeps coming. I mean, this is a place to focus on for the next several years. Goodyear Civic Square just broke ground earlier this year. At Harkins, #1 Harkins in the state. The Cheddar's deal there was $2 million above average unit volumes elsewhere. Texas Roadhouse, between Texas Roadhouse, Olive Garden, and Cheddar's, they pulled about $20 million of sales in a quarter mile stretch there. The Regnos we talked about there across the street, they expanded immediately. I got a call this morning with another client that wants to be at this intersection. He's up in Arrowhead right now, seeing this the location to locate into. So, we waited a long time for that mall to happen. Unfortunately, the world changed. And there's great plans now there with Globe Corp to redevelop that as high density residential and some street retail, pad sites out there. It's probably one of the hottest intersections out here right now as far as people wanting to know more about it. Have a concept, look at the Civic Square there out of Nashville that will bring in live country music 7 nights a week and have a great menu. And they want to do a mezzanine looking over the Civic Square Park there. And then also program that with all, bring in venues out of Vegas to, Nashville, Nash Vegas, to perform there. So we've been having great conversations with Globe Corp on that. And it's really going to be the focal point, I think, in the Southwest Valley once it all gets built in. And it has struggled over the years, with the site across the street there, where the big boxes are. They've still got a 60,000 square foot sitting there, and those are just hard to find right now. They're really hard to find. So, but this can't move fast enough, really, as far as getting everything figured out what they want to do there as a redevelopment. Because there is demand out here, the sales numbers really get capturing the attention of other users out here. Another old favorite corner, 99th and McDowell, the 101 and I-10. Harkins opened another one further out. They've still done well here. Costco's always been a big draw here. A lot of chains out here, and they service the employment along the I-10 corridor. They're fast, they're easy, they're predictable. You know what you're getting when you walk in. That northeast corner, there's a neighborhood grocery plan right there with 200 apartment units back behind it. Those pads are getting strong activity also. But again, it's one of those interchanges you have to talk about as a retail tenant kind of guy. Why did they locate here? What their sales numbers are, and another reason to pay attention to the West Valley. So just some narrative there. I mean, probably the next thing we'll be watching out would be, northwest corner town that this ranch. I mean, it's 35,000 acres. It's a monster, and it's getting attention already. So there are grocery stores already starting to talk to home builders and the master planner out there about where do we put our down on the map here so we don't miss out.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not ready to do anything now, but we'll get there soon.
Well, there are a lot of hungry people in Buckeye. Also, we learned
Yes.
a couple of years ago that really are just ready for those restaurants to come in. So
Buckeye is, I want to be there with all my clients. The traffic's there, the demand's there. It's just, where is that next retail development coming in? We're going to create a pad or some shop to put them into. I love Dorado.
yes,
I mean, it's maybe RFD, it's just a niche little community they've developed there. They are planning some retail right at McDowell and Dorado Way. The visitor center is going to be turned into a local interior operators can come out and occupy 5,000 feet there. They got another 2,000 feet remaining there, but it's ready for that. Where's that great glass of wine, craft beer, and a good menu for that audience there too, because they want it. I mean, so it's the Fry's that was built on just to the west of Dorado there. I mean, they pre-leased that real fast. And we get to talk about Buckeye, Human Watson, traffic never stops there.
Oh.
It's only the parking lot out there. You'll see that red light 3 times right through it. But there are no more retail pads along the street there. They were indeed restricted for restaurants there. So we'll get something out there eventually.
well, even looking at I-10 in the evening going west,
Mhm,
once you get past Pebble Creek Parkway, it pretty much stops
mhm.
to get into Buckeye.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of folks that are west
And that neighborhood really changed too. I mean, back in the day when it first built the big Walmart center out there, Lowe's, I was interviewing for the Chipotle board. And they're going, should we be out here? And I'm going, too early. Everybody leaves that community, go swing a hammer somewhere else.
Yeah.
The economy's different this time. It's not an economy of people swinging hammers for a living and pouring concrete and putting in plumbing. It's an educated workforce, better incomes, and they're looking for more. It's just a matter of us as brokers, developers telling them why they need to be there and making deals happen. Because it will help bring traffic to the shopping center and help out with home sales out there too. They might have some amenities for them to go to rather than just that local chain.
So 34% of all advanced business service employees in Maricopa County, so finance and insurance, real estate, 34% of that population, that workforce, lives in the West Valley. So if you break down the region in these 3 areas, West Valley, Phoenix, and East Valley, we have more than, and these numbers are about a year old, a little bit over, and obviously we're changing day by day. But we have more than a third of that workforce. So it's definitely changing. We're definitely seeing those household incomes within the Buckeye and again, these pockets that we talk
I do feel there's a need for more Class A office space out here. We have the executive living out here. They can find a phenomenal place to live to their lifestyle needs and expectations, but they hate driving on that west. They're driving into the sun, get the office in the morning, driving in the sun to get home at night. So Class A office makes some high demand out here. It's just a matter of it's going to go vertical on it, but their lease comps right now, they'll support new construction. They're just going to have to take a risk, but it's demands here. So you have to get a big commitment from a big Class A office user, and then we'll start taking off.
Well, Globe is going to be that
think so.
access for us, so we're excited.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chuck. Appreciate
Sure.
everything that you've kind of gone through with us, and we're hungry, we're excited, and we're young, aren't we, Scott? So before Scott with Carefree Partners takes over, Scott's going to talk to us about the multifamily housing as well as obviously retail and those amenities that come along with it. But Scott, in your space, one of the things I want to point out is that the median age in the West Valley is 35 years old. In the East Valley, the median age is 36 years old, inclusive of the ASU campus. So that's pretty significant, and it shows that we are a younger community. We're really focused on attracting young talent and retaining young talent. And I think that's kind of where you come in, is what are some of the areas that you're working in that really help tee us up to attract and retain that young talent in this region?
Well, I think that's an excellent point. I mean, we've got properties that we think are well positioned in Surprise and Goodyear and Buckeye to take advantage of that that young population, that young workforce, and identify those places for Class A office and new industrial that feeds into the new economy and the tech corridors that are really emerging. So the fact that we're getting younger, we have a strong labor force, a more educated labor force than we have in the past, and we have some phenomenal education assets to take advantage of that labor force. Those put, to me, the West Valley in the forefront of growth over the next 30 years. So no, totally, we need to take advantage of that, and that's part of what I want to talk about.
Awesome. Well, you've got some slides for us, so
I do, and I'll try to cruise through these and make the points that on each of these. And really, what I want to do is come at this from a sense of urgency. You know, the West Valley is so well positioned, but we need everything, and we are on the verge of you know, if we don't start keeping up, we're gonna cause ourselves some systemic problems, I think. So I've titled it, "We're gonna need a bigger boat," and it really comes down to it's a challenge for us to keep up with the opportunity that's coming up. Next slide, please. So if you look at the opportunity or the problem, we have a current 9-day supply of housing. I mean, Liz was referring to this. We have an affordability challenge that's about to face us, and frankly, a chronic supply-demand imbalance, where we're not going to be able to keep up with that demand of housing. I like this map because if you look at the very east side of it, it's just past the 303. Now that cuts off our property in Surprise, but what it shows is that the White Tank Regional Park is going to be the center of a trade area that someday is going to be in excess of 2 million people. And we're a lot closer to that than we used to be. So when people think about the West Valley in 20 years, they're going to be looking at maps more like this than they have in the past. Next slide, please. So what do we need? And really, the purpose of some of this is to shock a little bit. But if you look at 8,000 to 10,000 rental units added annually, that'll help us keep up. 20,000 new lots annually, we're not anywhere near that. 15,000 new homes, we need infrastructure for everything. So when you start looking at those numbers, and that one column slid down there, but really what we're talking about is $4 billion annually of investment into rental housing, for sale housing, and lot development. And then on top of that, there's an annual investment that's really going to need to be provided by government to provide that next step. Where do we get the water sewer capacity? Where do we get the broadband capacity? That water sewer capacity that governments have the opportunity to use long-term funding to provide, we need to start putting that in the ground next. Next slide. So a couple key data points, thanks to Elliot Pollock for providing these. I have borrowed unashamedly from him. He has the best data. If you look at the apartment units delivered and what we're anticipating in 2021 and 2022, this is region-wide. So this is 8,000, 9,000 units. Well, we need that many just in the West Valley, as evidenced by the fact that over on the next piece, the average rent change from a year ago, even in a recession period, our rents were still going up at 4% a click. So we still had a pretty significant demand. I mean, that's now granted it's not 10%, but we're going to be back up at 10% here pretty quickly if we don't start adding to supply. I always like to say supply and demand works every time it's tried. So we need to make sure we get that supply back up. Next slide, please. On top of that, going back to some of Liz's points, the reality is interest rates are driving a lot of this affordability right now. They're driving a lot of the activity. But even with a tick up, we're still going to be undersupplied on resales and new homes. We're not building enough to keep up. So in the West Valley, we need to figure out ways to increase that supply, and labor's a part of it, and materials are part of it. But a big part of that is availability of lots. And some of that comes back to availability of utilities, water, and sewer. Again, thanks to Elliot Pollock and company for providing these. Next slide, please. So how are we going to do that? And again, this comes back to that urgency item. It's a little bit of a call to action. We've got to figure out how to get more infrastructure on the ground today. And that's investment. And that could be government, that could be private sector. But those are key elements to getting houses out of the ground. If there's no place to plug in the water, you can't build a house. The incremental improvements, we work with a lot of cities, and it's always better from their perspective to have a centralized water campus that has all the components to it for all the future growth. Well, the reality is, if you've got to spend $50 million to do that, who's going to front those dollars? So how do we break that up into incremental improvements that can start that development? We can get back to that potentially in the future, but if we're going to have development, we've got to make incremental improvements to the water, sewer, and infrastructure plans. Otherwise, we're going to hit a brick wall. We've also got to improve more densities. In order to get in order to house all the people and all the jobs, we've got to be able to house people close to those jobs. And so getting more densities is a key component of the general plans and the city councils in order to make that a policy switch. Adjusting regulation to accommodate those while maintaining high design standards. I'm a big fan of design. Design carries you through those lulls in the economy, but we've got to be able to adjust regulation to accommodate those higher densities. Walkability is always key. Accessibility to transit or jobs. For example, one of the challenges that a lot of the industrial projects, the distribution warehouse projects have along I-10 is getting their employees to work. Well, we have to make sure we locate housing in close proximity to these jobs and be comfortable with mixing some of these uses to a greater degree. And then there's the competitive piece, that speed to market and eliminating some of that uncertainty. That is critical. Alternative financing, understanding that cities are in a position to provide 30, 40-year dollars to provide those big infrastructure investments. That is also important. So we need to start diving into those tools, and everybody's been hesitant. Everybody remembers 2007, 2008, and it was horrible. And but this is different. As Chuck said, it's different this time. This is a different situation, and if we don't figure it out, we are not going to enable ourselves to become the West Valley that we can. Next slide, please. So it all comes down to reducing costs, and those costs, I think the one to emphasize, regulatory costs and certainty costs. So developers need certainty. They're willing to put more money into landscaping and bricks and all those things. They just need to know, hey, can we build this project here, and are we going to be able to flush the toilets when it's time to flush those? And frankly, the West Valley is in a position with the ingenuity of the city councils that we talk to. They're ready to go. There's just some of these things we need to flip the switch and get going. And then that regional transportation piece, I think the West Valley is going to do real well with kind of the extension of Prop 400. I think they're starting to ramp up, and it's critical. Next slide, please. So why it's really the two pieces on this to emphasize. It's an economic development imperative. We're getting all these great jobs. We want that Class A office. We want more of those corporate headquarters. If we don't have the housing stock available for the employees and the executives, we're not going to get there. And we can't have this idea that we're not able to build the housing to keep up with it, or they will find other places to go. We're competitive with Austin and Reno and Denver. And so we have to be able to keep up with those markets. The other piece of this is, interestingly, retail used to follow rooftops. Chuck has said that, retail follows money. Well, retail is rooftops today. With Amazon and the way that sales tax works, you get a house in there, you order from Amazon. I do a lot of it. Every single order like that now is feeding sales tax into the community, which is a big difference. That's one of the big differences during COVID, where cities were finally able to start collecting some of those sales taxes. Next slide, please. This is another great one, and I just want to touch on that we have one of the most significant imbalances of supply and demand in the nation. We've seen a 20% increase in housing prices in the last year versus a national increase, which was I think it was 12%. And we are undersupplied in the existing and new homes, and there is no way to rectify that in the short term. Versus in 2007, where we built 65,000 homes when we needed 35,000, we can't build 35,000 homes, we're at 27,000. So we have to make that up somehow. Next slide, please. So I'm a big fan of the West Valley. I live here. Most of our properties are here. So this idea of TSMC creating a technology corridor, what's happening on the I-10 corridor, the 303, what's happening at Douglas Ranch, some of these other major I-11 corridor, that is going to take the West Valley into a position that we didn't think was possible 20 years ago. But it is, and we're there. We've just got to keep up with it. Again, the other point on here is the integrated education system. WestMec is a huge asset to the West Valley. We need to continue to plug them in on economic development initiatives. The Community College District, one of the best in the country for job training. We need to plug them in to a greater degree. And I know they are, I'm not saying that they're not, but the next phase is these groups can bring more value into the next wave of the new economy than I think anybody else in the nation. And school district, charter schools, universities, all important. Ottawa University, I'm always going to plug for them because they're at the Surprise City Center. And they do a great job, and they're nimble, and they can create something that other universities haven't been able to create yet. The last item, I put this up in jest. It's 100,000 new barrels of whiskey per year. We need 4 new craft distilleries. I bring that up for Chuck's benefit because the reality is we need everything in the West Valley. If you look at that first map I put up, you've got a population that was equivalent to the city of Phoenix and the Phoenix metro area in 1990. So that needs to be duplicated west of the Agua Fria River. That includes, we need scotch, we need whiskey, we need all of it to be able to be competitive in this world market. Next slide, please.
That was my favorite bullet, by the way, on this slide. I was so distracted the whole time you were going through it. I'm like, this is going to be a great message.
It's one of the most important. So what are our risks? I think we all know what the risks are. Liz talked about some of those: commodity costs, labor shortage. We all know what those are, the interest rate. But the biggest risk to me is that we could be running into a wall without figuring out some of these fundamental issues. And frankly, the reality is in 2007, we ran off a cliff. We were too exuberant. We had too much. We're not at the risk of doing that. So let's go try to run off a cliff, because the reality is if we don't, we're going to continue to run into this wall by not having enough product and losing affordability. Next slide. This is cheesy. We can do it together. We can do it together. We can only accomplish it together. So there you go. That's the message I'm leaving.
But it may be cheesy, but it's true. This is really, I've seen the West Valley evolve over the last 20 years. You're right. This time around, it's not like the 2009 crash. It's a completely different game. We were on housing heroin back then. Our economy is much more diverse today. Our household incomes, the entire region has completely changed. And so keeping pace with it, we can only really do it together by staying together. One of the areas you brought up is transportation and the importance of that. We have this piece that's been sitting in front of you called All Roads Lead to the West Valley. And that was recently created specifically for this reason, is to show that, if you build it, they will come, and they did. 20 years of investment in transportation improvements. We really saw those opportunities come in along as Chuck went through, as Scott went through. We really saw those opportunities come in along the West Valley freeways and where we're going to go in the future with it. Prop 400 is heating up very strongly right now, so it's definitely an area that we want to make sure our membership is engaged in and paying attention. So go to the MAG website, check that out, or contact us, and we'll let you know how to better engage in that discussion. But really, this all comes together. This is part of the growth of the community. Housing, you need the people, you need to get around town, and we definitely need to eat. So I think we have a couple of questions. I got to put my glasses on now, or you might need to help me out on this, Marcus. Looks like, are we experiencing, I think we asked that one. What impacts on the retail market are you seeing in e-commerce? That would be for maybe all of you.
We were terrified as first started, right? When Amazon started taking off, e-commerce came in, it impacted retail. I mean, there's too much duplication already. I mean, how many fabric stores do you get on your section?
Right.
And how many this and that? There's too much duplication, and that drove development when there was tenants, and then we saw vacant boxes sitting around. I think since then, the e-commerce has been adjusted to. We know what to expect now. Retail development's getting active again. I don't know the days of the big power center. Definitely the days of the enclosed malls might be done. Our centers, they're gonna be more like we see at the 303 in Waddell. I mean, that's a good example right there that retailers saying there's demand, there's growth, there's a future here, as opposed to, 7-8 years ago, they're going, we don't know what to do. We just see our sales declining, and we got to start canceling new projects. And we always use the term in the restaurant side, but it's a segment is Amazon proof. A great niche to be in. Didn't think about pandemics. Closed down the market for a year. But I mean, Scott, you might have some, and you both think about some impact on it too, as far as the e-commerce side of it. I mean, so we started recollecting tax sales or tax revenues with sales, that kind of equalizes things a little bit.
My view is the e-commerce piece actually drives us more towards creating community as part of our retail and entertainment versus just large places to warehouse stuff for people to buy. So I think what it does is give us an opportunity. And again, the West Valley is in the forefront of this because we don't have a lot of product to recapture. So we are now living in the e-commerce world. We are taking advantage of that with all the industrial development that's happening along 303 and I-10. We're already benefiting from that. Now we benefit on the next stage of urban development, where we're integrating more of these retail and restaurants into our communities, the high density, we create more walkability and let all the big inventory sit in the warehouse until they're ready to be consumed by folks. So again, it leaves more room for housing. It leaves more room for housing in proximity to jobs. I think it's a great time to be alive in the West Valley. And again, I think the West Valley is on the forefront of being able to take advantage of that.
Well, and I also think lifestyle centers, and maybe you can kind of touch on that.
Well, so for e-commerce, it's on a real world basis, it's changed some of the conversations. In 2019, we hosted a bus ride for people who want to invest in the opportunity zones. That opportunity came up. And one of the things we were saying is, yes, you're looking at it from industrial manufacturing, but that means you need people, back to your point, and there's some plots down here in the opportunity zones and near the opportunity zones are perfect for housing opportunities. If you go south of 10 now in the West Valley, whether you're going from Paulson all the way out to Buckeye, you will see housing of a variety of housing south of 10, which people in their minds think farms and manufacturing only. And that's not all that's there. And so people are able to move into there. The cities are back to the city plan saying there's a whole population center that we need to help address. And so in their city plans, they actually have plans to have those housing elements in there. With the e-commerce, on a real practical down nuts and bolts part of your development, it gets down to what size of compatibility are the streets and things like that within your communities. Can you accommodate what that means? And that's a real conversation that people in the community need to have with their city councils and their planning and zoning commissions and staffs at economic development. This is something that you need to accommodate for. And when we start hearing talk of the drone deliveries and things like that, that goes from FAA all the way down to your local HOA, right? Because if you have an HOA who says no drone delivery and that's where Amazon's going to go, you got a problem on your hands. Yeah. So participate at your HOA level, participate at your city council and planning zoning, write to your legislators at the state and federal, because it does make an impact. They have to know what your real life looks like before they can actually legislate something that helps you as opposed to hurts you.
Right. Anything else? Any final words from our great panel today?
Well, I'll just address the other part of housing has been the cash only buys. Yes. And the people and the prices before we had supply issues going up by 20, 23, 25, 50%, whatever, because of bidders coming in. So realize part of that was Californians coming in, who on average have a 23% higher budget than our local Arizona folks do. That was part of it. Good news for those of you who are worry about that. California prices are going down. So they're not going to have the same budget in a year as they do now as their values tank. And that's particularly true if you're not in a coastal city, like you're not in Santa Barbara, then your housing price in California is starting to slide and pretty dramatically. So that part, that element of the marketplace is going to rectify itself. On the other hand, we have employment that is increasing that salary for our Arizona people. So as that part of the equation starts to change, you'll see that evening out and you'll be in competition that is easier for you to compete in. Back to stay with your own budget in your own life. Stay true to that. And when you get to the cash versus the finance buyer, the homeowner versus the investment, that too, we're seeing a softening in that market. The fact of the matter is there are some people, as in any housing sale or purchase, it's emotional. If I've lived here for a long time, I would like to see someone else come in here and live for a long time. So we see in the marketplace, we see increasing number of people who say, I don't want to sell to it. I don't care what the number is. I want to sell someone who loves my house as much as I love my house. That's a part of the marketplace. We have people who need to sell right away and fast. And so it's not the money, it's the how fast can you make that work. There are tools in real estate, whether you are an investor or not investor, that will allow you to accommodate that wish. Back to know what your needs are versus your wants, and work with someone who can help you use the tools of real estate that are helping you be competitive in the market the way you need to be competitive in the market.
So I think the last thing I would say is when it comes to delivery regulation, I think the West Valley can pivot and be more accommodating to a development community that needs to be able to go speed to market. And with technology, we're already talking to a number of cities about this. And I think they could be on the forefront of how do we deliver our regulations so we maintain all the standards that we need, but we can do it faster, and we can be more efficient with our city employees, which are such a key part of how these cities operate, and provide a better working environment too. So that's the only other thing I would encourage cities to continue to go down that road and figure out how to create a much more efficient delivery system of regulation that's necessary, but can be done quickly with some more assurances so people get these projects out of the ground.
And that's a challenge with the labor market the way it is. So, yeah.
I think from a, how do we upgrade the restaurant experiences out here, the dining experiences for the local operators? The hardest part is to get them out here. You know, like, oh, I haven't been to the West Side in 15, 20 years. I'll come pick you up. Let's go out there. Let's go to the high volume chains out here. Just look at the people. They're your people. Look at the cars in the parking lot. Those cars are in your parking lot where you're at now. You got to start getting a new image of what we are out here, because it is different than what it was. And to Scott's point, we're not going to run off a cliff this time. It's just a matter of believing in the market, learning the market, and finding a site to locate. One of the things that's growing so fast out here right now, we don't see a lot of second shift space come available. Meaning it's been operated by another operator, it comes back. And the ones that are coming back right now, they're leased up almost immediately. They're in the waiting list almost. But as far as the, like I said earlier, the local operators, you just take the time, step outside, get in the car, come out here and go to whatever restaurant you choose and just serve. And when you observe, you'll like it.
Do you need more car capacity? Because I can come pick people up.
Yeah, we'll get a bus. We need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you, one of the pandemic positives, as I call this, is last year we launched a series called West Valley's Open for Business, virtual tours. And what we found with that series is those people that wouldn't get in cars before were jumping on Zoom. And so we were able to get the information to them, which is why, you know, we're coming out and so we can sit across the table from each other and, you know, not masked up. But we're still doing this virtually. We're still housing all of this information on our website. So if you're not able to make it today, if you're not able to, don't want to drive in the car, let us know, because we're putting all these things on and we're bringing these projects to you, and then enticing you by now when you see it. Jack Simon spoke a couple of months ago and he shared his project. So now all of a sudden, hey, I'm kind of interested in that and I want to see what's going on and I want to drive that 303 corridor. I want to stop and check out the homes at Toll Brothers and then go up the street and look at what's happening at Prasada. So we have it all for you at Westmark. We're able to do this because we have amazing speakers that we bring on to these topics and to these discussions. And because we have a great partner in SRP who was able to sponsor the series for it. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and to you all. And again, this information will be recorded, or it is being recorded, and it will be housed on our website. So you can always go on there and share it with others. These are free to attend, so please share this information. And the next hot topic series that we have coming up is on July 26th, and or is it the 28th? It might be the 28th. And the topic is employment growth. So we'll hear from State Lands Commissioner Lisa Atkins, Jim Rounds with Rounds Consulting, and they'll be talking about what's happening in the employment market, and specifically with state lands. How are some of these barriers being removed so we can accommodate some of these projects like Sandstone and some of the looks that we're getting today. So thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in July.
Thank you.
Thanks.